the last part of this cell lecture is on the cell life cycle. So we're going to understand how cells divide and the importance of it. So imagine you see this on the beach. I'm sure you all recognize it as a sea star. It's got 5 arms. Now, you may or may not know this, but if a sea star loses one of its arms, it miraculously can just grow it back. And how does it do that? Through cell division called mitosis, just multiplying cells, replacing the ones that were gone. Same thing with this fish. If a predator comes by and bites off his tail, it will just grow back. So it's pretty fascinating. Now you might be thinking, okay, great, this is human anatomy. I know if my arm gets taken off for some unfortunate reason, it is not just going to grow back. Yes, that's correct. Our body's a little more complicated. We can't just grow back limbs, but cell division is extremely important for us, and cells going through life cycles is critical. For example, do you recognize this? No, you don't recognize it? Well, this is how you looked when you were first conceived. So this is you as a single cell with half of your DNA from your mom and half from your dad. So everyone looked like this in the beginning. One cell. Now remember, how many cells are we now? Trillions. So how do we go from one cell to trillions of cells? Well, cells go through a cycle, through mitosis, and divide and divide. When they divide, you grow bigger and bigger, all the way to an adult. Alright, so you're thinking, well, you know what? I'm not really growing anymore. Do I still need cell division? Well, turns out, yeah, I've shown you a picture of your hand right now. Turns out that you are losing skin cells by the hundreds and even thousands as we speak. By the time you walk out of listening to this lecture, you probably would have lost at least a couple thousand skin cells just sitting here. Now what happens if you keep losing your skin cells and you don't replace them? Well, then you're going to have no more skin left, and that's not pretty. So even as an adult, we're constantly going through cell division to replace and repair lost cells or damaged cells. So, quick question for you guys, true or false? As an adult, your cells do not need to go through mitosis. This is definitely false. So remember, mitosis is the process of cell division, and we just talked about even as an adult, if you lose cells or damage cells, you will need to go through mitosis, divide healthy cells so you can replace the ones that you have lost. Alright, so mitosis. Let's actually define what it is precisely. So this is a refresher, we've studied it before. Is mitosis A, a cell growing larger, B, the division of one nucleus into 2 identical nuclei, C, the production of sperm and egg, or D, the cell at rest? So the answer here is B. It is the division of one nucleus into 2 identical nuclei. And it's absolutely critical for cell division. Remember, the nucleus is the control center of the cell. So if you want to go from 1 cell to 2, the first and most important thing is to make a copy of the nucleus so you can go from 1 to 2 nuclei. So let's take a look at this complete cell life cycle. So the majority of a cell's life is spent in what we call interphase. This is all here in light blue. So if this circle is one complete cell life cycle, the majority is interphase. During interphase, you might remember that the cell grows, the DNA replicates, and the cell grows more and prepares for division. For a short amount of time, the cell goes through mitosis. And mitosis happens in 4 stages. You might remember these from before: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. We won't go through them in detail now, but you can take a look at your book, and figure 2.16 shows you this cycle, and then 2.17 1.7 actually goes into detail about these 4 phases. I've shown here some images for you. This is a cell in prophase, and then here you can actually see the cell starting to pull apart, and then here, the final stages of telophase, you can actually see the cytoplasm dividing off. Here's another really great image. In red, you can see actually the DNA. So this is anaphase when the DNA is pulling apart. And then this here is the end of telophase when the 2 cells are actually splitting. So you won't be responsible for the details of each of these single phases for this class at this moment, but do remember the importance of mitosis overall. So one of the applications of mitosis is talking about some diseases. So what happens when mitosis is not regulated properly? So cancer is an example of this. Cancer is uncontrolled cell division. So it's cells dividing rapidly, way too fast. And when cells divide rapidly, it causes more and more cells, and that can cause a tumor growth. So when you hear someone saying they have a tumor, right, one of the things that might come to mind is you have a growth, or you can imagine visualizing a tumor as like an extra lump. And again, that gets there just through cells dividing out of control. And in this picture, you can actually see here where you see the yellow hair-like structures, that's where normal cells are. And the normal cells have cilia on top of them, which are the hair-like structures. Over here in green, these are the cancer cells. Notice they're starting to bulge out. They've actually kind of multiplied over and over again and destroyed the cilia on top. So what I want to show you here is a video comparing cell division in a regular cell and a cancer cell. So here's a normal cell dividing. Here you're seeing the cell go through the 4 phases of mitosis. We have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. The sounds are just for effect. Now here is cancer cell going through division. So here you can see many cells forming, and this growth right here is the formation of the tumor. And then notice how fast the division is going. Now we're side by side. Normal cell division on the left and cancer cell division on the right. Take a look at the number of cells. We've got 32 on the left under the cell number, and already on the right we have 1,480. Alright, going back to looking at cancer cells, I also want to show you this video of breast cancer cells going through mitosis. So these are real breast cancer cells under a microscope, and they're actually going through cell division. So this video clip was shown in 30 seconds, but it was actually over the course of 3 days that these cells were dividing. So you can imagine within 3 days you get that much cell division, and that's how rapidly the breast tumor can form. Alright, the next topic we want to talk about for the cell life cycle is stem cells. So you may have heard about stem cells before. They've been the topic of a lot of debate, but let's first understand why by looking at the basic definition of a stem cell. what stem cells are is undifferentiated cells that can divide. So in other words, they're somewhat like blank slate cells. Kind of think about maybe a student entering college and you don't know what you want to major in yet. So you know you're going to major in something and choose a pathway to go on for studies and a career, but you're not quite sure yet. That's what a stem cell is. It's an immature cell that is going to become a certain cell, maybe a heart cell, a liver cell, or a brain cell. Now, what scientists can do is they can actually control the cell division of stem cells. And by doing this, it's pretty amazing because they can make new cells for treatment. So for instance, if you have a generic stem cell, you can guide it into becoming, for instance, a liver cell to then replace liver cells that might have been damaged, for instance, by liver cancer. Same thing with heart cells. You could take stem cells and make them become heart cells. And so you can see how great this can be for actual cures. So here you have, for instance, the stem cells and then becoming muscle cells, nerve cells, and blood cells. Now the question is, where do you get these stem cells from? They have to be immature cells, so they're hard to find in adults. One place you can actually get them from is the umbilical cord of a baby. The umbilical cord has lots of stem cells in it because it's from the baby, and so these cells are not mature yet. So you may have heard of, after a mother gives birth to a baby, they would ask, do you want to save the umbilical cord? The reason why you would want to save your own baby's umbilical cord is because if the stem cell is used on the same person, so for instance, let's say you have a child and later on the child might need some liver cells, for example. If you take stem cells from that child's own umbilical cord, then because it's from the same person, you wouldn't reject those cells because they're like your own. So that's the advantage. And that's why they would ask, hey, do you want to save your own child's umbilical cord? So that's great, but of course everything comes with a cost, and it's not cheap to do the initial process of saving, basically freezing the umbilical cord, and then you would have to pay to store it constantly. And this is where stem cells can get controversial. It's like, okay, so you can get it from the umbilical cord. Another place they get them from is embryos. So the controversy becomes, is it okay to use embryos, which are basically the very first cells of a new baby, to actually use to develop stem cells? I've shown this picture here of a book, actually, called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Now, it turns out that they got some stem cells from this lady called Henrietta Lacks. They call them HeLa cells, H-E-L-A, H-E for Henrietta and L-A for Lacks. And this is actually one of the most common stem cells used. But how they got it was really interesting. So Henrietta Lacks actually had cancer, ovarian cancer, and they were, of course, trying to treat it. And in the process of treating, they took a biopsy. And so they took a sample of these cancer cells from her and were studying them. Unfortunately, Henrietta Lacks passed away. They still had her cells from the cancer, and they found out that these cells had this amazing ability to keep on living and keep dividing. And so that's why this book is called The Immortal Life, because these cells just kept dividing. And so these were actually a type of stem cells, and scientists got a hold of this, and they started using them fairly often and started sharing these stem cells with other labs. And so again, now they're really common in the lab. The reason why a book was written about it was that, unfortunately, Henrietta Lacks wasn't aware that this happened, and her family wasn't aware either. So there became a controversy and an ethical debate about whether it was right for them to do this. So since then, they basically made formal apologies to the family for using the cells. To summarize, the cell life cycle includes interphase and mitosis, which is the division of the nucleus into two. Altering normal cell division can lead to cancer and can be used in stem cells.